Hey guys, it's Brandon from Canadian Coldblood, and I'm excited to invite you in, along with Dion and Reptiles, to show you guys some of the improvements we've made here at Canadian Coldblood. You know, we'll be showing you some great tree monitors, dwarf monitors, maybe some geckos, and a few other weird lizards, and we hope you enjoy yourself, so come on in.
What's up everybody, welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Dion and you're watching Reptiles. Friends, you may recognize this room. We are back at Brandon's place, Canadian Coldblood, for a new tour in 2025. I am so excited to show you guys the animals Brandon is keeping and breeding. So many of his projects have expanded. He started so many new ones with some incredibly unique species, and well, you don't want to hear me blab. Let's get right into it and see what he's working with. This is not a tour you are going to want to miss.
See if I can weasel. Oh, the other one's out there. Hey guys, so I'm going to start by showing you a bunch of species of tree monitors. There's 6 species that are described, at least to science, of tree monitor living in Indonesia, and I currently are working with all 6 of those species and have successfully bred those species in captivity. And we're going to start with this little Varanus kordensis here. Varanus kordensis is from Biak in Indonesia, and this is one of the last species I was able to breed. And I mean, at least from the specimens that I have here, they seem to be generally on the smaller side of tree monitors. The coloration on them is quite variable. I have adults that are very dark, some that are really blue, some that are moss green, some that are really nice light green. So they're quite an interesting species to work with just because of that variation. And there's a lot of possible combinations I suppose you can make down the road when they become more established, but they're quite friendly. I mean, they are super social. One of the most social tree monitors I have, actually. So they're a great addition. And
they're absolutely gorgeous, man. I'm so happy you got them and have been breeding them. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been you know, it's been a trial to get them, right? But I was able to get some obviously over the last few years and then successfully work with them. So this project is coming on full steam now with many of the animals that I initially produced coming up of age to reproduce for me. So we're excited about that for sure. I'm working with 4 pairs of Varanus kordensis. Unfortunately, they're all not unique bloodlines at this point. I'm still trying to swap with other breeders to get some distinct bloodlines, but I do have 3 distinct bloodlines at this point, looking for the 4th. I have a few holdback females of my own as well. So anyways, that's one of the goals of ours is to at least ensure that we have genetic diversity for the Varanus kordensis as well. Now, you might be asking, Brandon, why are you such a wimp and why do you need gloves? Well, I don't need them, but if I donate blood, I want it to be for medical reasons only. So I prefer not to get cut up, and we're going to be handling a lot of lizards today. So yes, I don't want it to be like a horror movie.
That's definitely a good idea, my friend.
It's a good thing it's first thing in the morning. I just turned the lights on. Okay, mister. All right, this little guy is a holdback male yellow tree monitor, Varanus reisingeri, from Mazul Island in Indonesia. And yeah, this is a stunning specimen because it is what you would really be looking for in a yellow tree monitor, the true nice rich yellows. And again, yellow tree monitors are just like a lot of the monitors in the prasinus complex in general. There's so much variation in color and pattern, so we've strived here to kind of get a little bit or a little sample of all of the different kind of variations that you can see within the species. And this is kind of like what I would consider your typical patterning, but the color on it is really, really nice. I'm currently working with 4 pairs, distinct bloodlines of the yellow tree monitors. And you know, part of that is because I want to be able to provide people with different bloodlines for every species from now into the future, you know, from when I retire from reptile keeping. So it's kind of somewhat of an arbitrary number of pairs, but I figure 4 pairs of unique genetics are probably enough to keep that going into the future. Along with myself and other breeders that have them, we should be able to ensure that captive populations are genetically diverse, and you know, that will eventually hopefully eliminate the need for wild-caught animals. While Dion was out checking his phone, I cracked the incubator just to see if there was anything going on, hoping for a couple pips from some more recent clutches, but that were due to hatch, but I forgot about one clutch at the back of the incubator, and it was a clutch of yellow tree monitors, and when I stuck my hand in the incubator, I could hear them shuffling around in there. So conveniently, you are finally here when something is hatching or has hatched. Anyways, these ones are already out, which means that they were picked probably a couple days ago. I'll show you how I treat them when I pull them out of the incubator.
Yeah,
how's
let's
that sound?
do that.
So here's what I do. I'll show you. For everybody, if you get a hatchling monitor, this is what I do. So I take a little container like this, doesn't really matter what it is, put a piece of paper towel in, and I just give it a little shot of water. Just a little bit of moisture. I don't want it sopping wet, just a little bit in there. And why I do this is just, if they do have, you know, their umbilical opening, I don't cut eggs or anything, so they always absorb all their yolk before I bring them out. But I like to put them in there, stick it back in the incubator, just so that they can have, you know, some time to heal, right? Because in nature, they would definitely sit in the egg chamber for a little while. It looks like, actually, so not this whole clutch hasn't hatched yet. Because there's 4 eggs. In this clutch there's 4 eggs. There's only 3 babies that have fully emerged. So that egg right there that baby's hugging, it still has a baby inside. So what I'll do is I'll pull these ones out, put them in their little box, and then I'll flip that egg over, and you can see how it's pipped on its own, and it hasn't emerged yet. This is not an ideal situation when you get babies running around the incubator container. They roll other eggs. That's why I marked them on the top, so I know which way's up. But at this stage in the game, it's not super critical. I think that egg's probably already pipped as well. So I'll scoop these babies. And I always put the egg tray in a larger bin because they are quick, even right out of the egg. So try and make this as gentle a process as I can anyways, right? You don't want to scare them at their first experience in the world. Oh, look. So,
oh man.
So I'll pull this one out. Put him in there. Get that guy down. But this one, we could probably coax it to come out because it's ready. I don't know if you always put this on so they don't scoot all over. Just make sure I don't pinch any tails.
Of course.
He's going. Here he comes.
So this little guy just came out of his egg.
Still slimy.
So would you leave this guy in here longer, or he'd go in there with the siblings even if he
No,
still
I'm
has a
going to
bit
put
of
him in
yolk?
with the siblings because obviously timing wise they've already come out. He was ready to come out as well. Right, all of his yolk's absorbed. So then I put him in here. See, that guy has just a little bit left.
Perfect. That is so sweet, man. What a special treat. 4 beautiful yellows. How are you feeling? Does this ever get old for you?
Never.
I wouldn't
Never.
think so.
It's like Christmas every time I open up the incubator.
That is so awesome.
So yeah, so then I put them in here for another 24 hours back in the incubator on one of the lower shelves. And then they can heal up and then they go right into an enclosure.
And just so folks know, obviously this isn't refrigerated. you've converted this into an
This
incubator.
is the green monster.
Yeah.
Right? Artwork from Cody Kopp in the US. A beautiful shot of some green tree monitors. Anyways, this was the very first incubator I ever built. And I converted an old refrigerator from an old cottage that I bought. It's been good luck ever since, so I refuse to change.
And you have it set to, was that 82 Fahrenheit?
No, the upper rungs of the incubator, these upper shelves, they sit at about 84.5.
Great.
Right now it's sitting at 86 just because we've been opening this and closing this, and it has to adjust. But my thermostat in there, I think the set point on the thermostat is 82, which makes the upper level 84.5.
Awesome.
So yeah, I've experimented with temperatures like within a degree or two. So it seems I used to incubate at about 85.5, and you know, the babies would hatch at about 150 days, almost bang on, and having it at 84.5, they hatch 2 to 3 weeks later. But in my experience with reptiles, I think generally we incubate things too hot regardless. So incubating a little cooler and having it go a little longer is probably better. It produces stronger babies.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now what we do with the eggs,
Oh yeah.
tradition, the eggshells.
Where are those gonna go? I have an idea.
You go in the tree monitor egg bag.
Oh
And they
man.
dry out, so.
How many do you think are in there?
Oh god, I can't even tell you.
Are you like religious about always putting them in
Always.
there?
Always.
So this is truly how many you've...
This is truly how many are in there from the last 2 years.
Only 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't dumped them out to count them. There's a lot in there.
That is so epic.
Yeah, so instead of me looking at all the records to see how many hatch, I can just dump the eggshells on the counter. So at the end of 2025, I'll ziplock this and close it up and start a new bag. But yeah.
That is awesome, man.
All right, Mr. Sparkles. Oh, see that? That is what I do not want. Their claws are just like needles. So this is Varanus boehmei, or the golden spotted tree monitor from Waigo Island in Indonesia. This is a nice male, very highly speckled male. I like to call him Mr. Sparkles. And these are relatively new to the tree monitor hobby. They really weren't around up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago when a few came in as imports. So I was lucky enough to get some of them myself, and since then I have successfully produced them on several occasions now. So yeah, these are kind of the unicorn of tree monitors, if you want to say. And everybody has their preference, right, in terms of what they like. Some people really love the colors of these, you know, compared to the other tree monitors, just the diversity in the pattern. And they're quite diverse in pattern. Some of the animals I have are almost jet black in the body. Some of them have tiger striping. Some of them have, you know, a lot of speckling, really yellow faces. So they're very genetically diverse as well. And I'm sure part of that plays into locality from wherever they're from. I mean, honestly, they're very, very good captives once established. The captive bred animals are phenomenal. Quite social little guys. I am currently working with 4 pairs of Varanus boehmei. I have 1 additional female, 4 distinct bloodlines of these. So I've tried to stratify them to basically get a pair of each of the different looks that I've been able to notice within the species. So yeah, so we have some good variation with these guys as well. I can't wait to see what happens in the future with these and how much we can express some of these colors. That would be great. So in my hand I have a captive bred and born Varanus boehmei, a gold spot tree monitor. Like I said, we've produced a few of these successfully, and you know, all cylinders are firing on this project now, so we're excited to be able to offer these with regularity. I mean, these babies are just phenomenal. Fairly social, right? They do very, very well. Of course, captive bred and born.
I can't get over this. This is such a beautiful animal, man.
Yeah, I know, she knows what's up. All right, sweetheart. All right, so this is a Varanus beccarii, obviously a black tree monitor from Aru Island in Indonesia. And these guys are They are, personality-wise, my favorite. The animals that I originally worked with, they were all imported animals because at the time nobody was really captive breeding them. And as you can see, this is a female of mine. She is an original import as well, but she is, you know, she's such a sweetheart. And yeah, they always come to the glass and greet me. They're never very shy. I can hold them like this without a problem. Sometimes they'll even launch out of the enclosure on my face. And yeah, so you may look at this female and say, hey, why is she so big? Is she gravid? And she's not gravid, but I usually do a slower feeding time over the summer months, July and August and a bit into September. So now that I'm back in the facility every day, I usually try and jam the food to them to instigate cycles in all of my breeders. So over the last few weeks, we've had a lot of locks between all of the tree monitor species we have, just because I'm initiating that cycle with food. Because July and August, those are some fairly lean times for them, where they're just predominantly getting insect prey sparsely, just just to keep them going. And then in the fall, I come back and I really hammer food to them so that we can kick all of those cycles in. So I'm currently working with 4 pairs of beccarii, and again, I have an extra female, and they're all genetically unique as well. They're all unrelated. So again, in an effort to be able to supply people with different bloodlines and quality animals, that's sort of the initiative I set for myself.
Super cool.
So this is, kind of a generic monitor raise up enclosure. So when, monitors come out of the incubator, I'll set them up in one of these. And in here, I use cypress mulch substrate. I actually have the classic rock stack. Even though this is set up for tree monitors, I'll place bark in there obviously so they can crawl in the crevices, but they need a couple things. They need to be able to feed well, they need some humidity, they need water, and they need to thermoregulate. And the rock stack really allows that to happen, and they'll actually use it. You might think, oh, tree monitor on rocks, but they love it. So it's a good way for them to thermoregulate. They can crawl in the cracks between the rocks, and all of my species of varanids do that, right? From the Odatria, the Australian Odatria, to the tree monitors. So it works well. And and then when these guys are out of here and something else hatches, maybe Kimberly rock monitors or Pilbara rock monitors, then I can, clean this out, then throw them in the same enclosure with the same setup. So yeah, it's kind of a generic, tried, tested, and true formula for these babies, and it works well. So maybe unconventional to have rocks with tree monitors, but they like it.
No, that's awesome. Clearly your methods work.
All right, this is a little freshly hatched Varanus beccarii, black tree monitor. This is from my Arctic winter line. Typically beccarii hatch fairly heavily spotted with yellow, and these guys tend to hatch almost all black. You can see some faint spotting in there, but this is a unique feature. I mean, at the end of the day, they're black tree monitors and they all turn out black, but I like the variation in the hatchlings that we can get. There we go.
That's so smart.
Always works like a charm. So this is a Varanus macraei, a blue tree monitor from Batanta in Indonesia. These guys are the ones I cut my teeth on breeding tree monitors. My tree monitor passion started with macraei. And this animal here is one that I produced. She's probably about 4 years old now. And yeah, stunning coloration on the captive bred animals. She's currently a mother. She's given me several clutches. Over the last few days, she's actually actively been mating with the male that's hiding behind the bark. So, it is very hard pressed to get better coloration than a blue, right? You don't see blue often in nature, and these are a great example of that. And in reality, I mean, in terms of popularity out of all of the tree monitors, I still get more requests for macraei than anything. Again, I'm working with 4 pairs of these that are genetically unique, plus a few holdback additional females of my own that showed some nice coloration and attributes that I were, they're just too tough to sell sometimes. Yeah, I can't ever see myself getting out of this breeding project. They are great, and they are so smart. All tree monitors, super intelligent, but when you get, a nice captive bred animal and it's comfortable with you from day one, then you can really start to experience the intelligence they have rather than the, the fear that they might have had as imports. So
100%.
Yeah, so she let me pick her up with relative ease there, and she's not too worried right now. She's wondering who you are, though. That's how smart they are. That's how smart they are. They do recognize different
100%.
faces for sure.
I agree.
And that's what makes it a little bit difficult to do, you know, to do this with new people or people they're unfamiliar with, is because they don't necessarily behave like they normally would.
Yeah.
Now, she's okay, but she does have an eye on you.
Yeah. I'm the big scary guy.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So
Color's so nice.
this is obviously the little Varanus macraei, little blue tree monitor, one of my captive bred and born babies. This is actually the last one I have for this episode, just because I sent a bunch of them into the United States last week. But yeah, I mean, again, these guys are phenomenal. So this is one of the babies from my green line macraei. I posted this on my Facebook page a little while ago and talked about how I had acquired a couple of adults that showed some unique patterning and some green coloration, and this is the product of that pairing. So I'm very excited to see how these things turn out into the future, if they maintain that color. It's definitely unique. And in that post, I had a lot of people asking me if these were a hybrid between blues and greens, and it's absolutely not. This is 100% a pure Varanus macraei. It just happened to have the green phenotype. So just like anything, we have a spectrum of colors within any species, and yeah, this is on the green side for macraei.
That's a really cool animal. I can't wait to see how it develops, man.
Right, yeah, and the interesting thing is I hatched 3 babies from the first clutch, and they were all exactly the same, really different from any other baby macraei I've hatched. So yeah, we'll see how it goes for sure.
All right, guys. One of the things I want to make a point out of is, as a guest or a friend of Brandon's visiting again, it's so exciting to see how systematic he is about his approach with his breeding projects. He was always keeping multiple pairs of all the tree monitors, but to see that he has 4 pairs at least of every species he's working with not only ensures the genetic diversity, but just as an example, it gives people like the option to have 2 different unique bloodline pairs from each type of species he has to really help safeguard or secure that genetic diversity in the hobby. I just want to make a point, because really for me that's so exciting. I remember the last time I came, he had, I think it was 2 pairs of green trees, that's right, yeah. And I mean, now there's 4, and there's 4 of everything, you know, like the rarest species of tree monitor he's keeping, he's working towards that goal of 4 pairs, and he has it for just about everything. So that's something you do not see often, you know. A lot of people are just like, let me breed. There's a lot of, you know, even inbreeding, which is controversial as a topic, but Brandon's really trying to be systematic, and that's super cool.
Okay, so in terms of a typical tree monitor enclosure, I know myself and a few other breeders that have had success with this. I mean, I build my enclosures out of wood, but there are plenty of great PVC options. And if you look in here, the way I have it set up is that I have, you know, a nice horizontal branch across under the UV, a nice thicker branch under the basking spot. I have cork tiles all around the walls, and then I screw some big sheets of bark in there so that they can scooch in behind the bark and still hang on the cork walls, and they're layered there. So there's multiple layers and multiple sections where each individual can hide, you know, a few sheets of bark going up the sides so they can access the whole bottom. And then I have my nest box at the bottom with a wooden lid, and there's a heat pad and things under there to keep the substrate warm. You know, I'm looking at the nest boxes that I currently use as being a little bit big for what I'm starting to realize they actually need. I've never had a tree monitor prefer an arboreal nest ever, so I always put my nest boxes on the floor of the enclosure. To me, that's what would make sense in the wild. That's basically it. Very, you know, minimal wattage on the spotlight so that they can warm up slowly. A nice 6% or 10% UVB bulb in there, Arcadia Zoom Ed, whatever. And yeah, that's very basic. The setup is there. I try not to overthink it too much. I don't have many misters. I do it all manually. That's kind of my time to interact with these guys when I spray them daily and feed them, and it allows me to really get a good look at them. I like to be as hands-on as possible. So yeah, and that's that's what's worked for me up to this point. All right, so I have a little tube channel system where I can link enclosures. One, it allows tree monitors to go from enclosure to enclosure. That's some stimulus enrichment. They get to experience you know, a new enclosure. It widens the enclosure that they have. 2, it's a good way to transfer males between females if that's the goal. So I built this system. Basically, I just routed a few pieces of plywood to fit in a typical glass track that I'd use. Got a toilet flange from Home Depot, screwed it, augered a hole in it, and then used a 90-degree elbow, and then we just pop that in. It just fits into the glass channel, and put that in there, and then I could just bump the glass up like that. And then I take the other half, which fits in this side.
All right, and then
and
you
sets down, and then I can just link the pipes like this.
And you even have the option to close the passage after.
Yeah, and then just use some paper clips, but I have a little connector pipe. I saw, I made a little groove there so I can slide this in. This is good because if they're new and they haven't been introduced to one another before, it allows them to smell each other and gets the scent.
Right.
The scent between the animals and the different enclosures, so they can, sample before I move them over, so it's not as much of a shock to them. The other thing that I've used this for in the past is, sometimes I've done different things in different enclosures, and I put this pipe system here, and I can see which enclosure and what they like the most out of the two, right? So I've given them some options and then let them sort of tell me, oh, I like this temperature in here better, or I like this basking spot better, or this set of hides, or whatever. So it allows them to network between several enclosures, and I just sit back and watch and learn every day what they want. This has been good for that. This works for me, and I don't have to worry about ruining or putting holes in the enclosures. And I'm cheap, and this is cheap to make.
So man, this is smart. This is awesome.
Yeah. One of the things I hear, often is about egg binding in the female monitor lizards, and it seems to be kind of common perception that it's mainly due to improper nesting, which is definitely the case in many situations. But what I've started to realize is that tree monitors in particular, and now I've sort of noticed it along all of the species, is that females will retain eggs if a male is still in the enclosure, even if he's not in the nest box and bugging her. She just realizes that, he's a potential threat to those eggs. So if you are expecting eggs from your female monitor of any type, and the male is still in the enclosure, I would recommend pulling the male. And I've had several situations where I've pulled a male tree monitor and had females lay eggs within 12 hours and out of the nest box. And, that kind of painted the picture to me like, okay, yeah, she's ready to lay. She just doesn't want to lay if the male's in there. And every female's different in that regard. But I've always, over the long time now, always pull males out, right? I was always worried about eggs being eaten by the male or whatever. But I've experienced that where males have been in there for sort of that window of time where they should be laying and they're not, and as soon as I pull that male, she's in the nest box, lays the eggs, and is out. So that's one thing to consider going forward if you've having an egg bound lizard or one that retained eggs and laid a poor clutch. It could be the fact that the male was just in the vicinity and she knows not to lay those eggs in front of him. So
Well, you heard it here, folks. Tip from the expert.
So this is a green tree monitor, Varanus prasinus. This is the sarong locale. Oddly enough, these ones are becoming fairly rare in the hobby. I never put much attention on breeding green trees because I thought, oh, they're fairly common. So I always worked on building up the other species within the collection and kind of left these guys go by the wayside, thinking that I could maybe get some at any time. And now they've become fairly difficult to find. And this guy is the brother to legendary Sabzi. He is now a father, but yeah, he is your typical sarong, nice blue in the back, beautiful animal. And yeah, greens again. If that's what you're into, the green lizard, it's hard to beat the Sabzi like greens for sure.
I can't get over how big this guy is compared to Sabzi. She is so much smaller than this man, but it's pretty cool to see one of her siblings here.
It's almost too when, like, with males, they'll grow, at a moderate pace, and then when the hormones kick in, and especially if they're around a female, they seem to just blow up in growth, right? It's almost like they want to show those secondary sex characteristics to the females. So that is a big part in it as well, right? This guy, when I paired him up initially, he did not look like this. He's had a bit of time to grow since, but I mean, just the marked jump in size and features is quite interesting too, right? Again, we learn stuff every day working with these, and we're trying to piece those connections together, so it's great. It's like I said, I learn stuff every day. I'm always you know, observing and like, this doesn't make sense. Oh, he's telling me he wants this, whatever. So, you know, it's a constant learning process. We'll never know everything we need to know about these guys, for sure.
I think that's an awesome mentality too,
Yeah.
because as someone like yourself who has so much experience, it could probably get to your head easy, but the fact that you're always looking to learn and explore and find out more sets you apart.
Well,
I'd say.
I think, you know what, I think that's the biggest mistake people make is they're like, yep, everything's dialed in, and it's not.
Or that there's only one way, right?
Right, but it's like, you know, you get complacent, you get a clutch here and there, and like, oh, I'm doing everything right. And granted, you're doing a lot of stuff right if you're getting them to breed, but there's always stuff to learn for, you know, the animal's well-being, for maybe consistency in egg laying. And, you know, again, one of the mindsets that I have is like, you know, it's one thing to try and mimic natural conditions, but there's nothing about necessarily what we're doing that is going to mimic within nature. So I try to provide what they want within the captive enclosure and setting. Yeah. So just like the other species, I'm currently working with 4 pairs of green tree monitors with a couple additional females that I've been able to acquire just for some genetic diversity as well. They're just not large enough to be paired up yet, but again, that's one of the goals here, is to maintain that genetic diversity for the future of the species. One of the new projects that I've worked on in the last year or so is the Varanus auffenbergi, the Peacock Monitor from Indonesia. These are extremely pretty, nice blue, yellow, orange highlights. I thought, you know, they're probably a good substitute for somebody that might not want an Ackie, but wants a small monitor like an Ackie. And I mean, I've always loved these things, had the opportunity to get a few and work with them. So now I'm working with a small group of them. I have successfully bred them in captivity, which is really nice. So they're totally doable, great captives, and the color on these is just fantastic.
They're just gorgeous.
All right, so this is a Varanus glauerti, a Kimberly rock monitor from the Kimberly region of Australia. This is a big male. It's kind of nice because you can see, a lot of times you see them and they have their old skin on still, which is a little bit stained from whatever they have in their enclosure. But this guy just decided to recently shed yesterday, started, so you can really see the nice fresh exposed coloration in him. Again, I've been working with Kimberly rock monitors for over 25 years now, and still one of my all-time favorites. I'll never stop breeding them. They're very tree monitor-esque, right, in terms of their look and build. Super smart, great captives, to be honest. You know, if you can get past and figure out the egg incubation, the managing the adults and breeding the adults is no different than that of Ackies. So, you know, these were, at one point, they were my unicorn of monitor species. And when I remember that feeling when I first got the pair, it was unmatched. So, and for that reason, I'm never getting rid of them. I love these guys. So in my hand, I have the micro monitor. This is a baby Kimberly rock monitor. And this one literally just hatched a few days ago. So this gives you a size of a true hatchling. And they are tiny, obviously, compared to the adults, right?
Yeah.
And you can imagine a brand new baby pilbarensis is even smaller than this.
Wow.
So sometimes you get people, you know, you obviously sell offspring. And if I sell a baby Pilbara or Kimberly, they're like, how old is this thing? And I'm like, oh, you wouldn't believe it, but that thing's 3 months old, right?
Like a little gnoll.
Right, because it's so small. But yeah, that's the size that they hatch. I was going to say they are grease lightning, so I got to pinch the tail so it doesn't fly off, right? Because if this guy gets away, you're never finding it. Yeah. Here, come on. So this is a Varanus pilbarensis, a Pilbara rock monitor from the Pilbara region of Australia. And, it's evolved that color to kind of blend in with the reddish rocks and sand in that area. Again, I've been working with these guys almost as long as Kimberly's, and they are classic. They are beautiful in terms of their coloration, ocelli. They have everything you'd want in a nice pet monitor lizard. And this is actually a very large adult male. They stay really small, so they're a really true dwarf. And highly prolific, just like Kimberly rock monitors as well. But they love the heat. They like it hot and they like to eat. If you don't do that for them, then they tend to be sluggish and get fat. But anyways, these are the adrenaline of monitor lizards for sure. This is the common banded cricket we often find here in the facility at Canadian Coldblood. And he keeps an eye on the monitors, you know, make sure there's no intruders, and he's just general maintenance for the facility. So these are Varanus acanthurus, but the yellow form. Reds and yellow Ackies are both Varanus acanthurus. They used to be classified as separate species. Now they're the same species. This is just a male and female typical yellow Ackie. So you can see a lot of the sexual dimorphism there. I get a lot of questions about, you know, whether or not someone's male yellow Ackie is actually a red Ackie. And, you know, I hate to break it to people, but it's not the case, right? Obviously, these two animals have a lot of orange and red coloration in them. Some would say maybe these are like the classic Mount Isa form from Australia. Regardless, they're what we would traditionally call yellow Ackies. But yeah, this is the gateway monitor lizard for people interested in getting into the genus, right? They're durable, they're pretty, they're social, they have every attribute you'd want in a monitor lizard. And these are, you know, a couple fairly big adults, so they stay small and easy to accommodate.
And just to be clear for everybody, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the male and this is the female.
Correct,
right?
yep.
Wide-tailed base.
Yeah, so
bigger.
right. So what you typically see with males in reds and yellows and a lot of the monitors is, if you look at the ocelli, right? The ocelli are crisp.
Yeah.
The tail patterning and coloration is more crisp on the male versus the female. He actually has greater pronounced spikes on his tail. And then if you look at the necks, it's like night and day in the crispness in the pattern. So this red Ackie pair is sitting, copulating behind the nest box. And yesterday, this female was alone, and I noticed her sitting on her rock, and she was very swollen, like she was going into a cycle. So I pulled a male and put a male red in with her, and I figured they'd probably be locked in the next little bit, and sure enough, they are right beside the nest box. So these are a couple traditional red Ackies, roughly the same size as yellow Ackies. You can see there's some marked differences between the classic yellows and classic reds.
So again, we have a male and a female side.
Male, female, yep. Female here,
Yep.
male here. A bit dusty and dirty, but
Definitely very beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of that red base color that wasn't there with the other ones.
right. And then the facial markings, right? They have really
Oh yeah,
pronounced.
the white.
Yeah, really pronounced dark faces. So that's kind of typical of what you'd see of red Ackies. Technically, because they're all one species, there's been probably a bit of mixing going on of reds and yellows, so it's very hard to tell for some people. And even in someone's opinion, one might be one thing, one might be the other. So, you know, the red Ackies that I've traditionally started with, I have never tried to, not hybridize because that would be the wrong word, but cross reds and yellows together. For that reason, I tend to keep them pure. Yeah, so this is just a side-by-side of two Ackies. The one in my right hand is yellow, the one in my left hand is a red female. So you can kind of see the difference between the two localities now. And, you know, head is a lot different in terms of coloration, even proportionally. And then ocelli are much different, you know, on the red female than the female yellow. Yeah, I find reds just on average have slightly larger tail spikes as well. All right, so people know me for breeding tree monitors and the Australian Odatria, and over the last year or so, I've decided to branch out into some of the larger species of monitor. Not super large, with the exception of one species, but you know, moderately large. And this is one of the projects I undertook. This is Varanus cumingi, the Philippines yellow-headed water monitor. And I mean, in my opinion, you don't see water monitors that look like this. I mean, this is the pinnacle of color in a water monitor. This particular individual came from Mason Barnes in the United States. Luckily enough, he was generous and allowed me to take this holdback male from him. And I have a few other smaller juveniles from him. And I have a nice, really, really nice female cumingi from Mike Stefani's Mindanao line as well. I'm looking to maybe get some more from Mike Stefani. So hopefully I'll be making these a little more commonplace within Canada in the future. But nonetheless, I mean, they're just breathtaking, and they're a great, I mean, just color-wise, personality-wise, they're pretty good. But again, just something about them. I thought to myself, I got to work with these.
This is such a cool animal, man. Unbelievable color too.
All right, so welcome to the new addition to the Canadian Coldblood Monitor breeding facility. This is where I breed some of the larger species. Well, I haven't bred anything yet, but in hopes that we'll breed. So behind me, we have Praetorian, the male Maruki Croc Monitor, and his girlfriend's in there as well. So I'm gonna give you a little tour of some of the animals in this room. All right, so I'm here with Dion, and we are going to try and feed Praetorian, the Croc Monitor,
A mouse.
a mouse. It's a small snack for this guy. I fed him yesterday, but I did not feed him a ton just so that we could get some footage today. So he's already looking down at this. He realizes that it's feeding time. So this is the Crocodile Monitor enclosure. So I constructed this last year, took a bit of time off work. And in this enclosure, I erected a bunch of fairly big trees that you'd find in the forests of Indonesia. I'm sure they're not as big as that, but I wanted some pretty thick logs for them to climb, maneuver around in here. This enclosure is 14 feet long by 11 feet tall by 8 feet deep. And it's got a bird box style hide underneath the basking area, which they love to use. And I have a nest box on the floor for the female in there, and then a watering and feeding platform on the other side of the enclosure. And these guys love it. There's UV lights over top of every horizontal main basking log, and these guys use every inch of this enclosure and are fairly active, but super intelligent. This is by far the smartest reptile I've ever worked with. And they recognize me, and they notice that you're here, Diane, so they're a little bit tentative now. And yeah, but this is kind of what I've set up for them. So obviously, you know, in time I'll see room for improvements here and there, but for right now, they seem to be enjoying it. All right, so this is a lace monitor, bell phase, Varanus varius from Australia. And this is a female, and she's quite gentle. She's a sweetheart. So I just recently started working with these. These enclosures were actually designed for water monitors, but I was able to acquire a pair of these and threw them in these enclosures for the time being, but obviously they should be a bit taller. I understand this, so I'm working on that. In the meantime, I've had the pleasure of working with these guys for a couple months now. I'm hoping this female's actually cycling, maybe gravid. Don't know. We'll see what happens. She was with the male, and I did see a whole bunch of stuff, although no confirmed locks, so it's maybe wishful thinking at this point, but it would be great. Anyways, so yeah, these are one of the larger monitors I'm currently working with, and I hope to breed them for, you know, the Canadian market. There's quite a few in the US, but if we could establish them in Canada, that'd be great. So yeah.
This is a dream animal for me.
Oh,
not anytime soon, obviously. I don't have room, not the house for it, but I would love to own a lace monitor.
All right, so with me now I have a Varanus salvator, and this is a black dragon. So this is another one of those little projects I'm working with. I have a thing for all black lizards, black tree monitors, black dragon, and you know, the only drawback with these guys is they do get a little bit larger than the black tree monitor, but
just a little.
They are cool nonetheless. If you have the room, they are neat.
That is an incredible animal. Wow. This guy's gonna grow up pretty fast.
Here's a little Varanus albigularis, the black-throated monitor. These guys are pretty cool, although they do get big as well, but they are ravenous. And their head is unlike any other monitor head.
Yes.
Right? Their head is so bulbous. They're like a little bulldog of the monitor world.
Yeah.
All right, so this is an Abronia species, Abronia griminea, the Mexican alligator lizard. These are one of those little side projects that I've been working with over the last year or so. This particular female is the calico phase of the griminea, and I believe she's currently gravid. So I'm hoping, I don't know when, she'll drop a litter of babies, and that'll be pretty exciting. But yeah, I've always been drawn to these guys, and finally took the plunge into trying to work with a few different species and a few pairs of the griminea as well. So I'm hoping to get some more offspring soon.
Super cool. When you think of a dragon-looking lizard,
oh yeah,
oftentimes people will refer to these.
So for those of you that were still interested, I still work with Nephrurus and a bunch of New Caledonian geckos. This guy's a little Nephrurus amyae. He's kind of like the poster child for knobtail geckos. So I really like these guys, and they're quite animated.
Yes, clearly. Awesome.
In a new twist of events, Canadian Coldblood has branched into working with a nice little species of snake, and this is Gonyosoma margaritatum.
This is probably one of the most beautiful snakes I've ever seen in my life. This is unreal, man.
Let's try and feed it.
Yeah?
Let's see if I can.
Can you give her a mouse?
Right. One of the knocks against these guys is that they just don't feed well in captivity at all. And I think that's partially probably due to just the way people have been historically keeping them, if they ever have received them. Maybe too hot, not enough temperature options for them. But in my experience so far with them, they've been quite manageable, really. You know, the general consensus with these guys is that they are extremely sensitive, that they do not do well, and you know, people lose them, right? So, but with these guys, I've had fairly good luck with them. I set them up in a tree monitor cage. I kept them cool, lots of little twigs that you'd find in the canopy, and I haven't had any issues. They feed well, they feed on everything, and just give them lots of options in terms of hides and temperature gradients in there, lots of fresh water, mist every once in a while, and yeah, no looking back with these guys. So I hope that at some point in the near future, well, near far future, I'm able to have the privilege of breeding these. So it'd be great to finally see some captive bred ones of these available in the hobby.
For today's question of the day, I'd like to ask you all, out of all the species Brandon is keeping here at Canadian Coldblood, what is the one you would choose to keep and why? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I'll give your comment a heart and we can engage in a little bit of a conversation. All right, guys, this concludes this tour. Brandon, I just want to say thanks so much, buddy. This was unbelievable. And the animals that you're keeping, always been so cool to see, but like all the new projects you got going on, the expansions with the existing species, this has been so cool. So thanks so much for having me, buddy.
Yeah, no, and thank you for coming. I always appreciate you're a great guy, and you know, I like showing off to your viewers as well some of the animals that we're working with, and you guys are welcome anytime.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity as well.
Thank you. If you guys want to see more videos pertaining to Brandon and the work he does and other room tours, check out the place up above here. Otherwise, see you guys. Take care.